Hi, I'm posting because I'm drained. I am mentally drained from my sisters and brothers on YouTube. I have been watching YouTube more consistently in the last several years. Prior to that, I didn't really watch it. I thought it was a forum to do how to makeup tutorials, makeup, hair, um, travel to a certain extent, and so forth. In the last couple years, I've used it to try to find out information about traveling to the continent and which countries within the continent that I wanted to visit and potentially do visit primarily, but maybe also do business with something in the future. And also getting more into ancestral uh, um, based um, therapy, what you want to call it, getting healing, so forth. I've come to the opinion that I need to get some of that. So I have been doing research. That being said, it has exploded in African Americans and blacks in the diaspora to be traveling to either visit, relocate to the continent, to many different countries within the continent. I'm aware there's 54. And so I took YouTube to join channels to try to get different perspectives because we're not monolithic and people have different experiences. Initially, it was mostly people blacks that Caribbean descent and British descent that I primarily started because they seem to be showcasing that um, for a little longer as far as being in the continent in different countries. And then I got connected to, because of the artificial intelligence, with Americans who are now going to the continent and others. And I thought it would be a very therapeutic uh, experience seeing it through the eyes of many of these people I share. Um, I said skin folks, oh man, kin folks, but I share at a minimum some being African descent. Then I start looking at channels that come from the continent in different countries that YouTubers from there, and many who are African and live other places have started making channels about the continent in their countries that they come from. So that's the background. Why am I doing this? I am exhausted. I am thoroughly disappointed. I have realized that YouTube is nothing but a reality shitstorm in some cases, excuse my language, and it's draining. And so I said to myself, I go on channels, and until recently, I wouldn't comment. I wouldn't have anything to say because, again, I'm learning. I'm not there. Um, I do have her perspective. Been living overseas off and on for 20 something years, different countries, um, uh, and on different continents, but never on the continent of Africa. And that wasn't by design. It's perhaps because I did at one point strongly was trying to get to the continent in my area of expertise, but God had other plans. That being said, I said to myself, well, I would like to do something with my business that eventually that will allow me um, to go to the continent for several reasons. I'm interested in traveling there. Um, I'm interested in getting medicine from there, and I mean healing. And I'm interested in seeing there's business opportunities there. And I have then that being the criteria, and I've said to myself, well, let me explore via the lens of all these lenses that online social media has offered for me to explore. And quite frankly, everybody got an agenda. And I am just amazed at how many people are unhappy. I no country is perfect. I didn't leave the States because of my dissatisfaction. I left the States because I thought there was more to the world than the United States, to be clear. So, me leaving the States was not because, um, and there's a lot of problems in the States, because of I was escaping. It was me wanting to always explore and have a global mindset, always. So I've been to China, I've lived in India, um, done business in Mexico, and throughout Europe, some in Japan, different places and everything. There's pros and cons and all of it, but none of it is of my descent. So of course, you at some point ask yourself, from the continent I my ancestors have come from. And oh, that's another thing. African Americans, we have ancestors too. I don't know why, and it's not all. When I make mention of some Africans, I always say some because it's not everybody. Believe we don't, we do, and they got memories too. I start looking at the social aspects, and I've read all the business genre stuff about Africa. I've read all the nonsense that comes with the corruption, this, that, and whatever, and that happens everywhere. So that was never the rule of thumb as to where I wanted to explore options. I really was looking at the people and looking at the mindset, and can you work with people to do something better, and what is that better going to be? Because quite frankly, at some point everybody wants to retire or do something different than what you're doing, or expand what you're doing, but you want to give back. And giving back for me is including the America that I come from. So I want to be clear, I'm not one of those, and there's nothing wrong with that, African Americans who do not feel I need to give back to my community there. I want to be clear. I do. But I believe I have a bigger role at some point to give back in multiple ways. And that also includes some place somewhere in the continent. And so I've been exploring. And I've been exploring, and I'm quite frankly disappointed. Again, it's not a government. It's not the political disruption and geopolitical stuff, and it's not. I mean, that's some of it, but the 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 corrupt, all of that you put to the side. Now let's go back to the people, and let's talk about how the projection of, you see it both ways. The African American, let me say this as somebody who's lived overseas for a very long time. You can't go to nowhere. Nowhere. I've seen the people here, and they should do this, and they should do that, and blah blah blah. And you ain't been here not a day long, and you got an opinion about everything. Keep that to yourself. Nobody want to hear that. There's no country perfect. You don't want to hear about everything in the United States. It ain't perfect, and you know what you're dealing with there. However, nowhere is perfect, but yet people do want to strive for perfection. How you work with people, how you build relationships will allow you to do that. And you have to become, it's not necessarily indigenous, but you have to become part of the fabric. You have to become part of the solution. And sometimes it's going to be just time will tell. Are you really, are you part of the fabric? Do you want to feel yourself in becoming indigenous? Or are you going to take and run home? Everybody don't want to be raped. Now I say that to say is that you got Africans from some, I always say this some, who do run overseas and they take and they go back home. And then you got some on YouTube who got all the opinion in the world, but they ain't sitting in some other country. So they're going after opinion about what their sisters and brothers are going on in their country they come from, but yet they don't live there. You can get an attitude. I don't care, because I have nothing in this but to say that everybody needs to breathe. No one likes you come to their country and overexpose things or make things dramatic or make people feel that they are not worthy and this is their country. Nobody likes that. But you also got to take a back seat when you come to a country and you don't try to get to know, you don't try to build relationships either. I heard one YouTuber, no, I've heard several say, well, the expats are not mingling with the indigenous population. Newsflash, a lot of you, when you come to the States, you go to the UK, you go to different places, you don't interact. You go to your community and you stay together. So that happens. I'm not saying it's right, but don't claim you don't understand that thought process when you do it. Now, I say this because I'm really just trying to understand the best way to meet people who are like-minded like me, who just wants to see the world and see the continent and see countries there and see opportunities there and not have to get caught up in the drama to pick sides. Because at the end of the day, we are people. We are of the same of descent. Do we know the culture that exists today? But quite frankly, some of y'all don't know the culture that existed over 400 years ago and so forth either. It has warped into something else. That being said, it has not reached its peak yet, and we know this in many countries, and it's still exploring itself of where the new age of some of these African countries are going to be. Just like America is going through whole change management, just like the Middle East, what you think of the Middle East is totally different than what you see if you are living in the Middle East, and the progression and the thought process and the way people are embracing innovation and so forth. It's making the world smaller. So what's yours is mine, mine's is yours. That's all become very clouded when you are trying to successfully, as people in different communities, compete against other communities, compete against other states, compete against other countries, compete against other continent world powers, and so forth. Now, I know everybody ain't going to understand that, but I'm hoping that some of you who understand that will just take a chill pill. Get yourself back to why you develop your channels to be constructive and get back to the constructive nature of giving people knowledge as opposed to the destructive way that's going about of dehumanizing each other, calling names. If this person calls a name, you got to go back and call a name. Tit for tat, tit for tat. That I'm just confused about, is there any hope for us? And people want to say it is the colonizer and this, so forth and so on. And that may be some, but y'all are good on your own. Y'all do enough that they ain't got to do nothing but watch y'all sink each other. I won't be a part of that. I have opinions. Everyone does. But I have learned there is your side, their side, and then there is the truth. And none of us have a universal truth when it comes to how things happen in a community, in a state, in the country, because people are always enablers, and people, as long as you have people, um, things will be fluid, things will change, things will not stay the same, things will evolve. Some takes more time, some takes less time, but at the end of the day, the people in that community have to determine that. So I say that to say some of you expat people coming there, pick a country that you think have that mindset and the people are moving in the direction that you want. They may not be at the pace, because I tell you what, nobody in the world move at the pace that Americans think things need to be moved at. Nobody, quite frankly. And quite frankly, that's not the most healthy thing. Look where we're at now. I think we all can learn from each other. But that's a two-way thing. You can never think, my African sisters and brothers, that you have the knowledge of everything and you can't learn from us. And we definitely can learn from y'all. But it is a mutual benefit that we get our shit together and we stop the negativity in these YouTube streets. It's draining. Until next rant, see ya.